Have you ever been outside and just caught this flash of brilliant blue out of the corner of your eye, maybe perched on a fence post? Well, if you have, you've seen something pretty special. More than just a beautiful bird, you've actually witnessed one of nature's most incredible comeback stories. So today, let's dive into the amazing journey of the Eastern Bluebird. I mean, this quote just says it all, right? It perfectly captures that little bit of magic you feel when you see one. It's almost poetic. But what makes that moment truly special is knowing that this little piece of sky almost blinked out of existence forever. To really get why seeing a bluebird today is such a big deal, we have to go back in time, back to a period when its future was anything but certain. We're talking about a species that was pushed right to the very, very edge. The scale of the problem was just staggering. Try to picture this. For every 10 bluebirds that existed, 9 of them just vanished. This wasn't some minor dip in the population. No, this was a catastrophic collapse. Ornithologists were genuinely worried that the species might be lost for good. And the crazy thing is, it didn't happen overnight. This was a slow-motion disaster, a crisis that just crept up over half a century. From the 1920s all the way to the 1970s, the world just became a tougher and tougher place for a bluebird to make a living. So what was going on? Well, it really came down to this devastating triple threat. First, their homes were disappearing. Open fields and old trees with those perfect little nesting holes were being cleared out. Second, the widespread use of pesticides was wiping out the insects they needed to survive. And third, they were facing these new, aggressive competitors, introduced species like house sparrows, who would literally steal their nests. But right when things looked their absolute bleakest, something amazing happened. The solution didn't come from a big government program or some high-tech lab. Nope. It came from ordinary people who just decided to do something about it. And this is where the story really turns from despair to hope. The engine behind this whole recovery was this incredible concept, citizen science. This wasn't about professional biologists in lab coats. We're talking about retirees, families, folks on the weekend, just everyday people who proved that you don't need a PhD to save a species. They were willing to build things, monitor them, and collect data that would literally change the future. So how'd they do it? They created this thing called a bluebird trail. And you can see here, the whole process was just brilliantly simple, but also totally scientific. They built these special nest boxes, put them in exactly the right kinds of places, and then, and this is the most important part, they watched them. They collected all this priceless data on what was working and what wasn't. And the result of all that work? In absolute, unqualified triumph. The Bluebird Trail movement became this shining example of how a dedicated community can completely turn the tide. So the big takeaway here is this. Every single time you see a bluebird now, you are looking at the living legacy of this incredible grassroots effort. It's proof that a group of people can make a huge difference. Okay, so now that we know their incredible survival story, let's get to know the bird itself a little better. Because trust me, beyond that beautiful color, bluebirds have some truly fascinating biology and behaviors that make them even more remarkable. It's the first thing anybody notices, right? That stunning, vibrant blue. But have you ever actually stopped to wonder where that color comes from? Because the answer is probably not what you're thinking. Okay, get ready for this because this is so cool. Bluebirds don't actually have any blue pigment in their feathers. None at all. Instead, the feathers have this microscopic structure that scatters sunlight and it only reflects the blue wavelengths back to our eyes. It's the exact same reason the sky looks blue. So in a very real way, they are a little piece of the sky. And that famous blue, it isn't the same across the board. The males are the rock stars. They're the ones with that brilliant, eye-popping color. The females are a much more muted, kind of dusky blue-gray, which is perfect camouflage when they're sitting on a nest. And the babies? The juveniles look completely different. They're grayish with a spotted breast to help them blend in. Now, besides being beautiful, bluebirds are amazing little pest controllers. Get this, a single pair of bluebirds feeding their nestlings can eat up to 2,000 insects in one day. 2,000! That is a huge benefit to any garden or farm, and it's all thanks to their very specific way of hunting. They are absolute masters of a technique called hawking. They don't really hop around on the ground looking for food. Instead, they perch up high on a wire or a fence post, and they use their incredible eyesight to spot a grasshopper or a beetle way down below. Then they just swoop down with amazing precision and snatch it. It's like watching these tiny blue fighter jets at work. And this table right here, this shows you just how much all that citizen science data paid off. It turns out bluebirds are incredibly picky renters. Through decades of observation, people figured out the perfect house specs. That entrance hole, for example, has to be exactly 1.5 inches. Why? Because that's big enough for a bluebird to get in, but it keeps bigger, more aggressive birds like starlings out. It's brilliant. All right, so this brings us to today. The comeback has been a massive success, for sure. But in the world of conservation, the work is never really done. So what does the future actually hold for our little blue friend? First, let's just soak in the fantastic news. From that terrifying 90% decline, the population has roared back. We're now at an estimated 20 million breeding pairs, maybe even more. That number is just a powerful, powerful testament to what dedicated people can accomplish. It's a huge victory, and it's absolutely worth celebrating. But of course, new challenges are always popping up. Climate change is starting to mess with weather patterns and when insects are available, and that directly hits their breeding season. Urban sprawl continues to eat away at their favorite open habitats. And maybe most importantly, that whole network of bluebird trails depends on volunteers. There's a constant need for a new generation to step up and keep the project going. You know, when it's all said and done, the bluebird story is really about hope. It's this powerful reminder that when people decide to act, even a species that's on the very brink can be brought back. And it leaves us with this really important question. If a bunch of everyday people could write such an amazing success story for this one little bird, what other conservation stories are out there just waiting for us to write them?